Hello, hello, hello! Welcome back to the Feel Good Factor. I'm Susmita Veganosaurus and I'm so glad you could join me here today. Hi everyone! I have Tamar here on my show today. So Tamar and I met on an online group called Rise and Bloom. If you've been listening to the show, there have been a few other of my friends from the group who I've interviewed. Just like them, Tamar also has a lot of value to share from her own experience and her story. And I thought it would be great for all of you to hear her story. She is a life coach. There's another word she said, which I'm not able to get right now, but basically, she's a life coach. And she is very passionate about helping people come out of their addictions. And she is a podcast host. She hosts the podcast A Road to Health. And very recently, she became a best selling author of her new book, Hope Elevated. What a beautiful name, right? Well, I'm hoping that today listening to Tamar will elevate all your hopes too. So here we go. Hi, Tamar.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, good. Glad to have you here, and I'm so happy you are a morning person.
Yes, I love my mornings.
I'm not a morning person, so if I have to work with somebody who's on the other side of the world, so just for everyone who's listening, Tamar's in Canada on the West Coast. So it works out very well if they wake up in the morning and then it's evening time for me. So, Tamar, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself to begin with?
I basically grew up I had a really wonderful upbringing. My parents were fantastic. I really talk about that in my book, Hope Elevated, like you mentioned, where, I didn't have a terrible upbringing. And it just so happened that the first time I tried alcohol when I was a teenager, I loved the way it made me feel. And although that seemed really normal at the time for me, as I grew up, of course, things started to get worse and worse. And I found myself in situations that I never imagined I would be in. And it really was bad for my self-esteem. I felt very less than. I was always looking for recognition. And so it was as though I was kind of seeking all my joy and happiness from outside. It was never self-love kind of thing. So I struggled also with dieting, yo-yo dieting. I was 215 pounds at a certain point, and then, of course, battled depression and anxiety. And at the end of 2011, I finally decided that enough was enough. And I was kind of sick and tired of being sick and tired. And this also came at a point, a low in my life. And somebody really wise in my life told me, your bottom is when you decide to stop digging. And I think I just got to a point where, like I said, I weighed 215 pounds. I was unhappily married and I was suffering really bad from addiction. I had actually given up hard drugs for a few years in my addiction story and gotten back on that. And so I decided to make a few changes. And like most people do, I made a New Year's resolution like I did every year. And this was in 2012 now. And so I decided to hire a personal trainer. Little did I know that that trainer would actually lead me into the world of recovery 6 months later. It was funny because when I started training, I was severely overweight. And I just thought if I can fix what's on the outside, how I look, then naturally everything would heal itself on the inside. Now I found out that wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
But I really thought so, right? I thought if I was skinny, I would get more attention. People would like me. I would have a higher self-esteem. And that just wasn't the case. And actually in my first, I would say 4 months of really, training hard every day, I didn't falter on that. I stuck with it because I have that very all-in mentality. I ended up realizing, though, I had a problem with addiction, and not only drugs and alcohol, but also food, because if I ingested any sugar, I couldn't stop. And so after recognizing that, I got into recovery and I ended up getting sober in June of 2012. And over the past 8 years, I've really started to recognize that I love helping people. And that started in my sobriety journey where other people needed help getting sober. And so
Mm-hmm.
I would start to teach them. And little did I realize that when I actually started to help other people, my joy increased and my happiness increased.
Mm-hmm.
And that has led to my passion today where I do life coaching and performance consulting.
Performance consulting, that's the word.
I know. It's a tough one. It's okay.
No, it's just a new one. Like, both the words are easy, right? Performance consulting, but because it's new, it takes a little time. But it sounds beautiful. Like performance consulting sounds beautiful too.
Well, thank you. Well, I figure, life coach is so overused.
Mm-hmm.
And although I am a life coach, I help people not, sometimes I help them learn new things, but I essentially help them perform better at what they already know. So, to gain more joy and happiness. But that's, where my passion came from, is helping other people. And now I do have a regular day job where I get to build relationships and make sure people are happy. But, my true passion comes in when at the end of the day or the weekends, I can help somebody else achieve their goals.
Yeah. And, I can see as a part of the group, I know there are other group members. There is this one lady called Flossie on our group who started taking coaching from you, and she only has such good, wonderful things to say about you. And we can see on the group, we ourselves can see the way she has grown after consulting with you and changing things and learning things. And can you tell us a little bit about this, about the process of your how do you help people? How is the whole process of consulting or coaching them?
So after I've gotten to know someone, I like to dig into their vision, because I think all of us need that pulling power in our life. I know myself, I never had a clear vision of what I wanted to do or who I wanted to be. And so there was always that, okay, well, I want to retire when I'm 65 and I'd love to travel the world, but that didn't get me out of bed in the morning. So first I work with people on creating their vision and their why, because it's important to get out of bed in the morning and think, okay, I have a purpose in my life. Now I know what I want to do and where I want to go. And then I help them create some goals. And those are goals that align with their vision, because all too often we create these goals. They're either too high or they're too low. They're not the right goals. And then after that, we go through and essentially do tasks, or milestones, because I find that when you break up goals into smaller, more manageable tasks, you're able to have more wins. And it always feels good. Sure, you've had goals in your life. When you achieve them, you start to feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing with my clients is I want to give them immediate wins. It may not be a big one, but when they can see that, hey, I actually did this. And Flossie's a really good example with that, because when, like you said, when we met, and she talks about this all the time in the groups, is that she didn't have good computer skills. And that's one of the things she wanted to learn. And now she's helping people live a healthier life because of her webinars. So it's that process. And it's really helping clients get over the past and rewriting their story. Because for myself, I honestly thought that I didn't have a big enough story. I don't know how to exactly say it, but I thought my story didn't mean anything. It couldn't help people. But now that I've written the book, I realize that's absolutely not true. So we can actually learn to use our past experiences to also help other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I help people go through that process of kind of looking at their limiting beliefs, that negative self-talk, and changing it into more positive self-talk that pulls them forward.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I really like your idea of giving them those little attainable goals and then just keep growing on that, because that's a beautiful way to process. Especially because, like you said, you're helping people from within, like trying to get over the past and trying to build their own self-confidence. And there's no better way to do it than actually to achieve all those goals, right? Little one step at a time, but actually having one success under you. that really gives you a lot of boost. And I love that that is a method that you follow. And yeah, like you said, I mean, now Flossie is like, she has her Zoom seminars, and then you can see her Instagram posts, and you, I think Flossie didn't even have an Instagram account before she joined the group, right? Like, so it's kind of beautiful to see the growth. And I also feel that being a part of helping each other, helping others, helping each other, I think there's a lot of our own growth that comes in that, right? Like, when you see somebody succeeding at something, I'm sure you feel your own growth, your own sense of achievement.
I do. And that actually I first learned in sobriety. I was always told that if you help others, it actually helps you more.
Mm-hmm.
And, I tell people this if they're ever, because we tend to get stuck in our heads sometimes, something bad happens to us and we start feeling self pity and that negative self talk, like maybe I can't do this. But instantly, when, say, a friend of ours were to call at the exact same time and they're going through something horrible, all of a sudden our mindset starts to shift and we go into helping that other person. But what happens is we actually get out of our own head. And so we stop thinking about ourselves and we start thinking about others. And I think when we become other people centered and, we create our own goals, but we do it for not only ourselves, but for the benefit of others around us. Because let's be honest, when you start doing positive things and you start helping people, it not only improves you, but it also helps everyone around you because you never know who you're going to inspire.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I like what you said. You're like not only helping yourself, but others. So there is that big part of helping yourself too, which is, I think that is a primary thing too. It's like, yes, you have the intention that I let me help others, and by through helping others I can help myself, but also a limit where it's like I'm not only helping others, and that is not just the only focus point, but because of this I'm getting help too, and prioritizing yourself in the process. It's a balance, right?
It is for sure. And it's something that's taken a lot of work because sometimes you just want to do things for yourself. You feel that you go into that. I feel sorry for myself. I'm falling
Mhm.
into this pit of self pity. But as soon as you help somebody else, you get out of that. And, it's, I think, really important in keeping a growth mindset.
Yeah, I also meant it the other way around. I'm not talking about the self pity, but also like when you're giving yourself a lot of your time, a lot of
Mhm.
your, like you're investing. See, when you truly care about helping somebody grow, then you're investing yourself emotionally in that a lot. So if it's taking too much of your emotion, to know when to step back and take that
Yes,
time for yourself, such an important thing to learn and balance.
exactly.
Can you tell everybody a bit about the book? Like what inspired you to write the book, and what is in the book? I mean, apart from your story, of course, exactly, what kind of, if someone wants to pick it up, so why would they pick it up? Why would they read it? In what way would it be helpful to people?
So, if you're someone right now who struggles with addictive behaviors, and that goes in all areas of your life, because I have struggled from codependency in relationships, friendships, obesity, so really extreme dieting, to the point that I could have killed myself, depression, anxiety, and also drug and alcohol addiction. And, one of the biggest reasons that I was inspired to write the book was to help other people hopefully recover whatever they're going through as well. And I think that's really brought to light with people I know have actually said, I've never struggled from drug and alcohol addiction, but there's so many other things I could relate to that I want to make these changes, and helping people recognize their patterns and behaviors that kind of keep them held back and not actually living the life that they wanted. And I really, like I said, had this belief that my story wouldn't matter, but now I realize it does. And I really want to get rid of that stigma where people think you have to have this horrible upbringing and suffer from abuse. Although, unfortunately, that's a lot of people that suffer
Mm-hmm.
from any type of addiction do go through.
Mm-hmm.
It's not everybody. And for the mother that maybe has too much wine at the end of the night and then every morning wakes up feeling guilty and doesn't know how to stop, maybe they can relate a little bit more to it and go, okay, it looks like I have my life together on the outside, but on the inside, I'm screaming, right? Because I spent the majority of my adult life inside, just in constant turmoil, and I wasn't happy. And I was, like I said, I was looking for all those outside sources to make myself happy. And so just kind of that, what happened, that shift, all the work that I started to do. I am actually writing a second book. I'm going to give
Cool.
myself a little bit of time. And it's going to, because I've had a lot of people ask, okay, now what? We want more. And I'm going to focus a lot more on what happened after sobriety and even the struggles that I endured after sobriety, because it's not just an easy road.
Mm.
Things are so much better, and it's taken a lot of self-discovery, but it's also, I had to be willing to change, and a lot of people say they'd like to change, but are they really willing to change? And so I'm trying to portray that in the book.
Yeah, like you said, it's not just enough to get sober or get over one addiction. I think when it comes to addictions, it's about being addictive inside. So,
Mm-hmm.
again, the often thing that tends to happen is if we don't have one thing to be addicted to, it gets projected onto something else, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what you were saying, especially about codependency and relationships, I think that is something almost everybody is in that. The codependency is a very, very strong thing that tends to happen in most relationships that we have, whether it's a friendship, whether it is, marriages or romantic relationships, anything. That does tend to happen where you feel like, okay, this one person, and then, whatever, no matter what happens, talking to them will make me feel better, or putting it onto them makes me feel. So that tends to happen a lot too. So, how do you recognize that, okay, now I'm over this one addiction, but it seems to me that I'm projecting this onto a newer addiction, which may not seem as extremely harmful as some of the other ones. It is still an addictive, it's a personality, it's an addiction that's happening. So how do you recognize that, and how do you step away from that?
So a good example is after I got sober, like I mentioned, I was obsessed with working out. I would work out 6 to 7 days a week. I would eat exactly what my trainer told me to a T. And because she also recognized these types of behaviors, she called me out on it very quickly. And she said, Tamar, you're moving from one addiction to another. And I think a lot of that is that instant gratification, like so desperate to go all in and to achieve something. But what we do to ourselves is, like you said, we just move from one addiction to another. And it was recognizing the pattern. And I do it today with food. I decided to go low carb in February. And so I went 5 months without eating any, like, very low carbs. It was just really protein and vegetables. And I really enjoyed it because that sugar craving went away. But as soon as I had some carbs again, the craving started to come back. But this
Mm.
time around, I recognized, okay, if I continue down this path, then it's going to keep going, right? And it'll just snowball into this addictive behavior. So it's been writing out my story, noticing those patterns, like what happens to me, what triggers those things, and trying to avoid or limit those triggers in my life. And it's not always easy because sometimes we don't want to avoid those triggers. If we have a bad
Mm.
day, we want to come home and eat a pint of ice cream and sit in front of the TV and watch some Netflix. But I think it's been, you and I talked about joy before the interview, and it's been finding my passion, and finding what really brings me joy in life. And when I find myself slipping back into some of those behaviors, switching over to something that truly brings me joy.
Mm. I think going within to yourself and finding what is truly bringing you joy versus what is giving you comfort right now, crutch.
Yes,
That is the one that
yes.
takes work, right? So, Tamar, what do you think? See, like you said, most people, you would assume when you hear somebody with alcohol addiction, drug addiction, you assume that, yeah, they've had a very terrible upbringing, terrible childhood. The kind of relationships they've had growing up have not been great. And that is the reason this is happening. But like you said, there are many cases where that is not the case either. It's just an addiction because it's not because of somebody else's, because of external factors, right?
Right.
So what causes this kind of an addictive behavior, do you feel? Then that will help people recognize it and be able to deal with it if you understand where the source is.
So they've done studies now and actually proven that addiction is almost like an illness or an allergy. And what happens is most people will talk about alcohol addiction right now. Most people, when they have a glass of wine, say at the end of the evening, they have a glass of wine because they enjoy that glass of wine and they start to feel that, oh, okay, I'm feeling a little tipsy now. And, a person that doesn't suffer from addiction would stop. That's their trigger to stop. Whereas a person in my, shoe, and alcoholism runs in my family, as soon as I have a drink, that allergy is triggered. And so now I want another one and another one. And I don't seem to recognize what the consequences are going to be. I know in my mind, if I drink too much, this is going to happen. I'm going to black out. I'm not going to remember anything. And I'm probably going to have to apologize to some people the next morning. But there's no consequences, right? And I remember waking up some weekends and, talking to a friend of mine and finding out, what did I do? And they'd ask, why do you keep doing this to yourself? It makes absolutely no sense. And I think it's really important for people that don't suffer from addiction to understand that we want to stop. This isn't something we want to continue to do, right? I didn't want to continue to hurt people or, make my life any worse, but it's the way we react to things. And a lot of women I talk to have the same thing with food. They don't understand why, as soon as they have that pint of ice cream, the whole week long, they're doing that instant gratification, the soothing, right? Because it's giving them something that they're lacking in their life currently. And it can come in all different forms. Like you said, codependency is a good one.
You recognize this and you avoid it completely then. So there is no question of if you are truly very seriously addicted, like if it's a serious allergy, like you say, then you just completely 100% avoid it and you don't even look at it in terms of moderation.
No, and especially when it comes to drugs and alcohol. I mean, food is really tough. And that's why I really enjoy working with women who struggle with sugar addiction as well, because food we can't avoid. We, I think, can just really work on changing our mindset. And I mess up all the time when it comes to my eating. I'm good for 5 months and then maybe I have a bad week. And I've just learned to give myself grace because food is something we can't avoid, right? It's something that's always going to be presented. Now, there are certain things we can avoid, right? Like for me, alcohol, I don't have to have a drink. I can have something else. I can have a glass of water or some juice or something like that. But unfortunately for food, it's a balancing act. It's something that we have to learn how to shift our mindset and the way we look at food and have a better relationship with it.
And I think the giving yourself grace, that is very, very key. Not feeling guilty, not going to it from that mindset. I think that makes a world of difference as it is, right? Because then it gives people a sense of, okay, this is not something that has a power over me, but yeah, if I had it, I had it, but it's okay, fine. I don't have to have it the next day or keep on doing it. If you're stuck in the sense of guilt, oh no, I ate that bowl of ice cream yesterday, then, if you go into the guilt, then to cover up that guilt, again, you'll need to feed it ice cream.
Yes.
In your, next book that you're going to write now, because once this is done, and of course, it's a bestseller, it's helping people, you're seeing this, and, most authors, when I listen to them, they're always like tired out after releasing that first book. They're like, oh, I'm done with this for a while now. And then it takes a while before they write their next book. But it's so cool that you're like already like, okay, next book, come on, I'm working on it.
Yes.
I'm sure it's going to be fantastic because you're going with that kind of energy, especially from the point of how you've seen this book helping people already. And you're like, okay, I'm going to do the next one. Can you give us a bit of an idea of maybe some kind of a story or an instance, something that's going to come in your next book?
So this is going to focus on more when I became sober and what I did to overcome I'll say most because food is still a big part in that, but how I overcame that addictive behavior. Also, how I started to own my life, because that's a big thing. I think a lot of people live in this, they see their past as one way, but it's actually something else. And so to really identify my patterns, to identify and own how I live today, and then also to share how I got complacent a year after I got sober. I started to kind of slack off. I had lost 75 pounds. I hit my goal. Life was good. And the work doesn't stop. And so
Mm.
how I picked up and recognized that, I'm sliding back here quickly. And if I'm not careful, I could slide completely back into my old life. And I want to really focus on, when you set goals, to make sure you continue to set them. And when you set a vision for your life, your goals should always align with that vision, because that'll keep you making new goals, right? And that'll keep you happy and joyful moving forward, doing the things that you truly love. So I really want to just focus that, life is not necessarily easy just because you've overcome something, but that you can use that as an experience in your life to help other people.
Mm.
And also just the struggles we go through day to day. So people realize, okay, well, she's not fully recovered and doing great and living this amazing life. Yes, I do have an amazing life now as a result of all that stuff, but
Mm.
it takes work. It's not something you just achieve and then that's it. You can just kind of go on cruise control. So I want to talk more in depth about that part of my journey.
Lovely. I think, and again, I think it's going to help people who are not traditionally addicted to the known evils like alcohol and drugs and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But, generally the smaller ones in life, it would help people a lot. And what I love about your story and about your next book also is that it lets people know that there is always hope. There is
Mm-hmm.
always there is, it's never too late. If you want to really intend to turn things around, you can do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've gotten most of my passion and joy from joining groups like Rise and Bloom, right? And being around other entrepreneurs and around other women and men that actually truly want to make a difference in this world and, help people live a
Hmm.
more fulfilled, happy, and joyful life. Because I can't tell you, I mean, I tell people this all the time when they ask me, how do you stay so positive and happy, especially through what's going on right now in the world? And I can't wait to go to bed every night so I can get up
Mhm.
early. And I get up at 4:30. I know you talked about not being a morning person, so I don't want to, get you nauseous or anything. It's the truth. I get up that early because I love starting my day doing something I love, because I do have a full-time job.
Mm.
And, so it gives me 3 hours to really let out my creative side and work with a client. And then when I start my regular day-to-day job, it's less monotonous. It brings me more joy because now I'm already in the mindset where I'm helping people. But I love waking up in the morning. I'm excited to get up in the morning now, and I could never say that before.
Wow. Okay. And apparently, you have clients who are excited to wake up in the morning too. If you're helping them at 4:30.
Yes, well, most of them are on the East Coast, and so they're about
Okay.
3 hours ahead, so they
Okay.
don't have to be up at 4:30, but I do.
Okay. Before we close, if there's anything else you'd like to share, with people about hope, about your life, anything at all, please go ahead.
Well, I think it's really important to find a vision for your life, where you see yourself. And that's something that I read every single morning when I wake up. Self-care is really important to me. So I wake up, I do meditation, I read positive affirmations, and then I read my vision statement. And so each and every day when I wake up, doesn't matter what time you wake up, I just prefer early, but start off your day with things you love and start off with a positive vision for your life, because then typically it allows us to have a more clear focus. It also allows us to make decisions based on where we want to go in our lives. And it does truly bring you a more fulfilled and joyful life.
That's beautiful and very, very true words. So, Tamar, if people want to connect with you, find you online, wherever your social media, website, all of it, please share.
So you can find me on Facebook. I have a group called The Road to Health. I also like to hang out on Instagram, which is The Road to Health PC. And then you can find all my links on my website, which is www.theroadtohealth.me.
And where are your books available?
On Amazon.com or Amazon.ca or any Amazon, and you just type in Hope Elevated.
Hope Elevated. Wonderful. And I think you started out with an ebook, but more recently you even got the physical copy, which
Yes,
looked
it's
very
out
cool.
there. Thank you.
I'm going to share all of Tamar's link in the show notes and in the blog post, and of course, also the links to the books so that you can order them if you want to. So, yeah, Tamar, it was lovely chatting with you, having you here on the show. Thanks so much for making the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye. If you enjoyed this episode of The Feel Good Factor, rate, review, and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform, especially Apple Podcasts. If you don't have an iPhone, please leave a review on podchaser.com. You can find my podcast there by going to podchaser.com/veganosaurus. If you'd like to be notified about the upcoming episodes of The Feel Good Factor, subscribe to my mailing list on my website, veganosaurus.com. veganosaurus.com. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Feel Good Factor. I'm Susmita Veganosaurus, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again very soon. Bye!